Lately, the channel has a lot of assets. You can subscribe to the channel, thereby greatly help its promotion and raise the asset. Thank you. In 2019, in Los Angeles, California, Michael Dutton was working the night shift at the Diamond Star jewelry store, where he had been a loyal employee for over 7 years. He loved his job and took pride in his knowledge of precious stones and metals. He also enjoyed chatting with the customers and helping them find the perfect piece for their special occasions. That night, however, was different. Around 2 a.m., he heard a strange noise coming from the back of the store. He decided to check it out, thinking it might be a rat or a faulty alarm. He grabbed a flashlight and walked towards the storage room, where he kept the most valuable items in a large safe. As he opened the door, he was shocked to see 4 masked men crawling out of the ventilation shaft. They were dressed in black and armed with guns and crowbars. They had cut through the metal grate and bypassed the security system without triggering any alerts. "Freeze, don't move," one of them shouted, pointing a gun at Michael's head. Michael dropped the flashlight and raised his hands in surrender. He felt a surge of fear and anger. How did they know about the safe? How did they get in so easily? Who were they? "Who are you? What do you want?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "Shut up. We're here for the diamonds, and you're not going to stop us," another one said, hitting Michael on the head with his crowbar. Michael fell to the ground, feeling a sharp pain in his skull. He saw stars and blood in his eyes. He tried to reach for his phone, which he had left on his desk, but one of the robbers kicked it away. "Nice try, buddy. You're not calling anyone," he said, smashing the phone with his foot. The robbers then proceeded to break into the safe and fill their bags with diamonds, gold, and other jewelry. They worked quickly and efficiently, knowing they had only a few minutes before someone noticed something was wrong. Michael lay on the floor, barely conscious. He felt helpless and hopeless. He wondered if he was going to die there, alone and forgotten. He thought about his family, his friends, his dreams. He wished he could say goodbye to them. But then he remembered something. He had a panic button hidden under his shirt. It was a small device that he wore around his neck, connected to a wireless transmitter that sent a signal to the police station whenever he pressed it. He had never used it before, but he always carried it with him as a precaution. He gathered all his strength and reached for the button under his shirt. He pressed it hard and hoped it worked. It did. A few blocks away, at the LAPD headquarters, Officer Lisa Jones was monitoring the security cameras of various businesses in the city. She was bored and sleepy, as nothing interesting had happened all night. Suddenly she saw a red light flashing on her screen. It was an alert from Diamond Star Jewelry Store. She clicked on it and saw a live feed of the robbery in progress. She gasped and grabbed her radio. "Attention all units. We have a 211 in progress at Diamond Star Jewelry Store on 5th Avenue. 4 suspects armed and dangerous. Requesting backup ASAP." She then called 911 and reported the situation. Within minutes, several police cars arrived at the scene. They surrounded the store and blocked all possible exits. They also called for an ambulance as they saw Michael lying on the floor through the window. The robbers heard the sirens and realized they were trapped. They panicked and tried to escape through the front door. But they were met by a barrage of bullets from the cops. "Drop your weapons, put your hands up," one of the officers shouted through a megaphone. The robbers had no choice but to surrender. They dropped their bags and their guns and raised their hands in defeat. The police arrested them and handcuffed them. They searched them and found out they were part of a notorious gang that had been robbing jewelry stores across the country for months. They had been planning this heist for weeks, using inside information from a former employee who had been fired for stealing. The police also administered first aid to Michael and carried him to the ambulance. He was still alive but unconscious. He had suffered a severe concussion and several fractures. He was taken to the hospital where he underwent surgery and intensive care. He remained in a coma for 2 days before waking up. He was greeted by his family, his friends, and his boss, who thanked him for his bravery and loyalty. They told him he was a hero who had saved millions of dollars worth of jewelry and helped catch some dangerous criminals. They also told him that he would receive a generous reward from Diamond Star Jewelry Store, as well as from LAPD for his actions. Michael smiled weakly and said he was just doing his job. He felt lucky to be alive and grateful for all the support he received. He also felt proud of himself for not giving up hope. He knew he had a long recovery ahead of him, but he also knew he had a bright future waiting for him. In 2022, in Chicago, Illinois, a group of young criminals decided to rob an electronics store at night. They were part of a gang that specialized in stealing laptops, tablets, phones, and other gadgets from various businesses around the city. They had been planning this heist for weeks, using online maps and social media to scout the location and the schedule of the employees. The store they targeted was called Tech Zone, a popular retailer that sold all kinds of electronic devices and accessories. It was located in a busy shopping mall, but it closed at 10 p.m., leaving it vulnerable to a late-night break-in. The gang consisted of 6 members: Jake, the leader; Tony, the driver; Mia, the hacker; Leo, the lookout; Max, the muscle; and Zoe, the newbie. They all wore masks, gloves, and hoodies to conceal their identities. They arrived at the mall around 11 p.m., after most of the other stores had closed and the security guards had left. They parked their car in a dark corner of the parking lot and walked towards Tech Zone. Mia used her laptop to hack into the store's security system and disable the cameras and alarms. She also unlocked the back door remotely and signaled to the others that it was safe to enter. Jake led the way, followed by Max and Zoe. They entered the store quietly and quickly began filling their bags with electronics. They knew exactly what they wanted and where to find it, thanks to Mia's research. Tony stayed in the car with the engine running, ready to drive away as soon as they were done. Leo stayed outside the store, keeping an eye on any potential witnesses or threats. They thought they had everything under control, but they were wrong. Lucas Taylor was the night clerk at Tech Zone. He was a 22-year-old college student who worked part-time at the store to pay for his tuition and rent. He loved his job and was passionate about technology. He also had a habit of forgetting things. That night, he had forgotten to pick up his bag from his locker before leaving the store. He had left it behind when he clocked out at 10 p.m., along with his phone, his wallet, and his keys. He realized his mistake when he got home and tried to call his girlfriend. He panicked and decided to go back to the store and get his bag before anyone noticed. He took an Uber and arrived at the mall around 11:30 p.m. He saw that Tech Zone was still open and assumed that someone had stayed behind to do some extra work. He walked towards the store, unaware of what was happening inside. He opened the front door and stepped in. He saw Jake, Max, and Zoe loading their bags with electronics. He saw Mia's laptop on a counter with wires connected to a panel. He saw broken glass and smashed display cases. He realized he had walked into a robbery. He screamed and ran towards the back door, hoping to escape. But he was too late. Jake saw him and shouted, "Hey, stop him." Max dropped his bag and ran after Lucas. He caught up with him near the back door and tackled him to the ground. Lucas fought back, kicking and punching Max in the face. Max got angry and hit Lucas harder, breaking a couple of ribs and knocking out some teeth. Lucas felt a sharp pain in his chest and mouth. He tasted blood and spit tooth. He reached into his pocket, where he had a small knife that he used to open boxes at work. He stabbed Max in the leg, causing him to scream and let go. Lucas got up and ran to the back door. He opened it and saw Leo standing outside holding a gun. Leo pointed the gun at Lucas and said, "Don't move or I'll shoot." Lucas ignored him and ran on. He hoped to find someone who could help him. Leah fired but missed. He ran after Lucas, leaving the back door open. Lucas managed to escape and called the police, who soon apprehended the criminals. In 2022, in Chicago, Illinois, Richard Lee was on duty at a gas station during the night. He was a 25-year-old college graduate who had majored in computer science, but he had trouble finding a job in his field. He had been working at the gas station for 6 months, hoping to save enough money to move to a bigger city and pursue his career. He didn't mind his job too much, as it was easy and relatively quiet. He mostly spent his time browsing the internet, watching movies, or playing games on his laptop. He rarely had any customers after midnight, as the gas station was located in a suburban area with little traffic. That night, however, was different. Around 1 a.m., he heard a loud bang from the back of the store. He thought it might be a car accident or a firework, so he got up from his chair and walked towards the window to check it out. He saw 2 men wearing ski masks and hoodies running towards the store. They were carrying guns and bags. They had just smashed their car into the back door of the store and broken it open. They were robbers. Richard felt a surge of fear and adrenaline. He quickly ran back to his desk and grabbed his phone. He dialed 911 and hid under the counter. He whispered into the phone, "Hello, I need help. There are 2 armed robbers at the gas station on 34th Street and Main Avenue. Please hurry." He hoped that the robbers wouldn't hear him or see him, but they did. The robbers entered the store and saw Richard's laptop on the desk. They realized that someone was inside. "Hey, where are you? Come out now or we'll shoot," one of them shouted, pointing his gun at the laptop. Richard stayed silent and hoped that they would leave, but they didn't. The robbers walked around the store and searched for Richard. They saw his phone under the counter and heard him talking to the operator. "Found you," one of them said, grabbing Richard by his hair and pulling him out. Richard screamed and tried to resist, but he was no match for the robbers. They dragged him to the cash register and demanded him to open it. "Open it now, or we'll blow your brains out," one of them said, pressing his gun against Richard's temple. Richard obeyed and opened the cash register, his hands trembling with fear. He knew that his life was in immediate danger, and he needed to think quickly to ensure his survival. As he handed the robbers the money, he took a deep breath, focusing on the instructions he had received during his training for such situations. With each passing moment, Richard's fear began to transform into a steely resolve. He remembered the importance of staying calm and compliant, knowing that his actions could make a crucial difference in the outcome of this terrifying ordeal. He maintained eye contact with the robbers, attempting to show them that he was cooperating fully. As the last of the cash was placed into the bag, the loud blaring of the alarm suddenly pierced through the air. The shrill sound echoed throughout the gas station, signaling that the silent alarm had been triggered. The robbers' faces contorted in surprise and panic, realizing that they were no longer operating under the veil of secrecy. The sudden alarm startled Richard, but he stayed focused. He knew that the activation of the alarm had drawn the attention of the local police. It was only a matter of time before they would arrive at the scene. Taking advantage of the chaos caused by the alarm, Richard discreetly danced around, trying to memorize any distinguishing features of the robbers that could aid the authorities in their identification. Within minutes, the sound of approaching sirens filled the night as the police vehicles arrived at the gas station. The flashing lights cast an eerie glow, and Richard's heart swelled with relief. He knew that help was finally at hand, and the dangerous situation would soon come to an end. The robbers, realizing they had limited time before the police reached them, grew increasingly frantic. They hastily grabbed the bag of money and rushed towards the exit, attempting to make their escape. However, the arrival of the police officers disrupted their plans. As the robbers burst out of the gas station, They were met with a swift response from the officers, who had taken strategic positions surrounding the area. The police shouted commands for the robbers to drop their weapons and surrender, but they opted to resist. A brief exchange of gunfire ensued, causing the surrounding neighborhood to be filled with tension and apprehension. Richard, still trembling with fear, took cover behind the counter, praying for a peaceful resolution. After a few tense moments, the officers managed to subdue the robbers and take them into custody. The relief that washed over Richard was immeasurable as he realized he had made it through the terrifying experience unharmed. The police commended Richard for his bravery and quick thinking. Acknowledging that his ability to remain calm and follow their instructions had greatly aided their intervention, they assured him that his assistance would be instrumental in the legal proceedings against the robbers. In the aftermath of the incident, Richard's story garnered attention from the local media. His act of courage inspired others, and he received messages of support and admiration from the community. Although the experience had shaken him to his core, Richard saw it as a turning point in his life. In the year 2021, in Los Angeles, California, Justine Lopez was the owner of a small convenience store that sold groceries, snacks, drinks, and lottery tickets. He had inherited the store from his father, who had passed away a few months ago. Justine loved his store and his customers, who were mostly regulars from the neighborhood. He worked hard to keep the store clean, well-stocked, and friendly. One night in late October, Justine decided to stay in the store after closing hours to restock some of the shelves that were running low. He usually hired a part-time employee to do this job, but he wanted to save some money and do it himself. He locked the front door, turned off the neon sign, and put on some music on his phone. He started to unload some boxes of cereal and crackers from the storeroom. He was so focused on his task that he didn't hear the sound of a car parking outside his store. He also didn't notice the four masked men who got out of the car and approached his store with guns in their hands. They smashed the glass door with a crowbar and entered the store, shouting and waving their weapons. "Nobody move. This is a robbery," one of them yelled. Justine was startled by the sudden noise and turned around to see the intruders. He felt a surge of fear and panic as he realized what was happening. He dropped the box he was holding and raised his hands in surrender. "Please, don't hurt me. Take whatever you want," he pleaded. The robbers quickly scanned the store and saw that there was no one else inside except for Justine. They decided to split up and search for money and valuables. One of them went to the cash register and forced Justine to open it. He grabbed all the cash and stuffed it into a bag. Another one went to the lottery machine and ripped out all the tickets and scratch cards. The third one went to the cigarette display and took all the packs of cigarettes. The fourth one went to the back of the store and looked for a safe or a hidden stash of money. Justine watched helplessly as the robbers ransacked his store. He felt angry and violated, but he knew that he had no choice but to cooperate. He hoped that they would leave soon and not harm him or his store any further. He also hoped that someone would notice the broken door or hear the commotion and call the police. He wished he had installed a security camera or an alarm system in his store, but he had always thought that his store was safe and that nothing like this would ever happen to him. As luck would have it, someone did notice the robbery in progress. A passerby who was walking his dog saw the broken door and heard the shouting inside. He quickly took out his phone and dialed 911. He reported what he saw and gave the address of the store. He also described the car that was parked outside, which had no license plate. The police responded swiftly and arrived at the scene within minutes. They surrounded the store and ordered the robbers to come out with their hands up. The robbers heard the sirens and realized that they had been caught. They panicked and tried to escape through the back door, but they were met by more police officers who blocked their way. The robbers had no choice but to surrender. They dropped their guns and bags and came out with their hands up. They were handcuffed and taken into custody. The police searched them and found masks, gloves, crowbars, and other tools that they had used for the robbery. Justine was relieved when he saw that the police had arrived and arrested the robbers. He thanked them for their quick action and cooperation. He also thanked the passerby who had called 911 and saved him from worse fate. The police asked Justine if he was hurt or needed medical attention. He said that he was fine physically, but shaken emotionally. He also said that he wanted to press charges against the robbers for breaking into his store and stealing his money and merchandise. The police took Justine's statement and collected evidence from the scene. They also returned some of his money and merchandise that they had recovered from the robbers' bags. They told him that they would contact him later for further investigation and prosecution. Justine thanked them again and closed his store for the night. He decided to call his wife and tell her what had happened. He also decided to hire a security company to install a camera and an alarm system in his store as soon as possible. He hoped that this would be the last time that something like this would ever happen to him or his store. In the year 2020 in New York City, Jake Miller was a bartender at a popular club called The Pulse. He had been working there for 2 years and enjoyed his job. He liked mixing drinks, playing music, and chatting with the customers. He also liked the tips and the flexible hours. One night in early December, Jake was working the night shift at the club. It was a busy night, with a lot of people coming in to celebrate the holidays. Jake was in a good mood and was having fun serving drinks and making jokes. However, his mood changed when he noticed a group of 4 men who were sitting at a corner table. They looked out of place in the club, wearing leather jackets, jeans and boots. They also looked drunk and rowdy, shouting and laughing loudly. Jake had a bad feeling about them, but he decided to ignore them and focus on his other customers. He soon regretted his decision when he heard a commotion coming from their table. He saw that one of the men had grabbed a woman who was passing by and was trying to pull her towards him. The woman was struggling and screaming for help. The other men were cheering and egging him on. Jake felt angry and disgusted by their behavior. He decided to intervene and stop the harassment. He put down his shaker and walked over to their table. "Hey, leave her alone," he shouted at the man who was holding the woman. The man looked up at Jake and sneered. He let go of the woman and pushed her away. He then stood up and faced Jake. "Who the hell are you?" he asked. "I'm the bartender here. I'm telling you to stop bothering this lady and get out of here," Jake said firmly. The man laughed and spat on the floor. He then moved closer to Jake and poked his chest. "Listen here, punk. You don't tell me what to do. You're just a lowly bartender who serves drinks to losers like these," he said, gesturing to the other customers. He then leaned in and whispered in Jake's ear. "And if you don't want to end up like one of them, you better back off and mind your own business." Jake felt a surge of adrenaline and anger. He pushed the man away and said loudly, "I'm not afraid of you or your friends. You're the ones who should mind your own business and leave this club right now." The man's face turned red with rage. He clenched his fists and swung at Jake's face. Jake dodged the punch and countered with a jab to the man's jaw. The man staggered back and groaned in pain. The other men saw what happened and jumped out of their seats. They rushed towards Jake and tried to attack him from all sides. Jake was outnumbered and outmatched, but he didn't give up. He used his skills as a former boxer to defend himself from their blows. He also used his surroundings to his advantage, throwing bottles, glasses, and stools at them. He managed to knock down 2 of them, but he was still facing 2 more. He felt tired and bruised, but he kept fighting. He also hoped that someone would notice the fight and call for help. He wished he had a panic button or a walkie-talkie to contact security, but he had none of those things. As luck would have it, someone did notice the fight and call for help. A waitress who was working in another section of the club saw the brawl and ran to the back office. She quickly dialed the security number and reported what she saw. She also described the men who were involved in the fight. Security responded swiftly and arrived at the scene within minutes. They saw Jake surrounded by 4 men who were trying to beat him up. They intervened and pulled him apart. They handcuffed the men and took them away from the club. Jake was relieved when he saw that security had arrived and saved him from a worse fate. He thanked them for their quick action and cooperation. He also thanked the waitress who had called security and saved him from a worse fate. Security asked Jake if he was hurt or needed medical attention. He said that he was fine physically, but shaken emotionally. He also said that he wanted to press charges against the men for assaulting him and disrupting public order. Security took Jake's statement and collected evidence from the scene. They also returned some of his money and tips that they had recovered from the men's pockets. They told him that they would contact him later for further investigation and prosecution. Jake thanked them again and closed his bar for the night. He decided to call his girlfriend and tell her what had happened. He also decided to ask his boss for a raise or a bonus for his bravery. He hoped that this would be the last time that something like this would ever happen to him or his club. In the year 2019 in Chicago, Illinois, Adam Smith was a pharmacist at a small pharmacy that served the local community. He had been working there for 5 years and enjoyed his job. He liked helping people with their health needs, dispensing prescriptions and giving advice. He also liked the owner of the pharmacy, who was a kind and generous man. One night, in late November, Adam was alone in the pharmacy. It was almost closing time, and he was finishing up some paperwork. He had already locked the front door and turned off the lights. He was looking forward to going home and spending some time with his wife and kids. He was so focused on his work that he didn't hear the sound of a car parking outside his pharmacy. He also didn't notice the masked man who got out of the car and approached his pharmacy with a gun in his hand. He smashed the glass door with a hammer and entered the pharmacy, shouting and waving his weapon. "Nobody move. This is a robbery," he yelled. Adam was startled by the sudden noise and turned around to see the intruder. He felt a surge of fear and panic as he realized what was happening. He dropped his pen and raised his hands in surrender. "Please, don't hurt me. Take whatever you want," he pleaded. The robber quickly scanned the pharmacy and saw that there was no one else inside except for Adam. He decided to focus on his main target, narcotics. He knew that pharmacies stored narcotics in a locked cabinet or safe, and he wanted to get them as fast as possible. He pointed his gun at Adam and demanded access to the narcotics. "Open the safe. Give me the narcotics," the robber growled, his voice filled with desperation. Although Adam was frightened, he knew that his primary concern was to ensure everyone's safety. He took a deep breath, trying to remain calm despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "All right, I'll cooperate," Adam said, his voice steady. "Let's just take it step by step. The narcotics are stored in a locked cabinet in the back. I'll open it for you." The robber's eyes darted around the pharmacy, making sure Adam wasn't trying to trick him. He nodded impatiently, urging Adam to move quickly. Together, they walked to the back of the pharmacy, where the narcotics were kept. Adam's hands trembled slightly as he retrieved the keys to the cabinet. He unlocked it and carefully opened the door, revealing rows of controlled substances neatly organized on the shelves. "Take what you need," Adam said, gesturing towards the medications. "Just please don't harm anyone." The robber's gaze lingered on the assortment of drugs, a mixture of greed and desperation flickering in his eyes. He swiftly grabbed several bottles and stuffed them into a bag, his movements hurried yet methodical. As the robber collected the medications, Adam discreetly glanced at the pharmacy's security cameras, hoping they would capture valuable evidence for the police. He committed the robber's appearance to memory, noting any distinguishing features or details that might aid in his identification later. Once the robber had taken what he wanted, he zipped up the bag and turned to Adam, still pointing the gun in his direction. "Don't try anything foolish. Stay here for 10 minutes before calling the police." If I find out you've alerted them sooner, there will be consequences, the robber warned, his voice tinged with menace. Adam nodded, his mind racing with thoughts of his family's safety and the well-being of his fellow community members. He watched as the robber swiftly left the pharmacy, disappearing into the night. As soon as the door closed behind the intruder, Adam sprang into action. His hands were still trembling, but he managed to grab his phone and dial emergency services. With a sense of urgency in his voice, he relayed the details of the robbery, providing the police with a description of the robber, his vehicle, and the stolen medications. Within minutes, police sirens blared in the distance, gradually growing louder until they reached the pharmacy. Officers swarmed the area surrounding the premises to ensure the robber wouldn't escape. Adam met the police at the entrance, feeling a mixture of relief and exhaustion. He provided them with a detailed account of the robbery, handing over the surveillance footage to aid their investigation. Days passed, and the community was on edge, anxiously waiting for news of the robber's capture. Finally, the police made an announcement. Thanks to the collective efforts of law enforcement and the evidence provided by Adam, they had successfully apprehended the robber. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief, grateful for Adam's bravery and quick thinking during the harrowing incident. The local newspaper hailed him as a hero, highlighting his ability to remain calm under pressure and assist the authorities in bringing the criminal to justice. Adam returned to work, the support of his co-workers and the community uplifting him during the aftermath of the traumatic event. He was determined to continue serving his community, dispensing medications and providing care to those in need. The robbery had shaken him, but it had also reinforced his commitment to the well-being of others and the importance of resilience in the face of adversity. In the year 2019 in Chicago, Illinois, Daniel Lee was a pharmacist at a small pharmacy that served the local community. He had been working there for 5 years and enjoyed his job. He liked helping people with their health needs, dispensing prescriptions and giving advice. He also liked the owner of the pharmacy, who was a kind and generous man. One night, in late November, Daniel was alone in the pharmacy. It was almost closing time, and he was finishing up some paperwork. He had already locked the front door and turned off the lights. He was about to leave when he heard a loud bang from the back door. He was startled by the noise and wondered what it was. He got up from his desk and walked towards the back of the pharmacy. He saw that the back door had been kicked open and a masked man had entered the pharmacy. The man was wearing a black hoodie, jeans and gloves. He also had a gun in his hand. "Freeze! Don't move!" the man shouted at Daniel. Daniel felt a surge of fear and panic as he realized what was happening. He raised his hands in surrender. "Please, don't shoot. I won't resist," he pleaded. The man pointed his gun at Daniel and ordered him to walk towards him. "Who are you? What do you want?" Daniel asked nervously. "Shut up. I'm here for the drugs. The good stuff. The painkillers, the opioids, the benzos. You know what I'm talking about," the man said. Daniel nodded and said, "Yes, I know what you're talking about. But you can't just take them. They're controlled substances. They're locked in a safe. You need a code to open it." The man snorted and said, "Well, then you better give me the code, or I'll blow your brains out." Daniel swallowed hard and said, Okay, I'll give you the code, but please don't hurt me." The man nodded and said, "Good boy. Now lead me to the safe." Daniel did as he was told and led the man to the safe. It was located in a small room behind the counter. It was a metal box with a keypad on it. Daniel typed in the code and opened the safe. Inside were several bottles of pills with different labels and colors. The man smiled and said, "Jackpot. This is what I came for." He grabbed a large bag from his pocket and started to fill it with bottles of pills. As Daniel watched the man fill the bag with drugs, he couldn't help but think of the potential harm they could cause if they ended up on the streets. He knew he had to do something to stall for time and hopefully find a way to alert the authorities. Pretending to be nervous and flustered, Daniel looked at the man and said, Wait, I can't open this safe. It's been acting up lately. Sometimes it takes a while for the code to work." The man scowled and replied, "You better not be lying to me or else." "No, I promise. Just give me a moment." "I'll try again," Daniel pleaded, his voice filled with apprehension. He punched a random sequence of numbers on the keypad, intentionally entering an incorrect code. The safe emitted a series of beeps, indicating an invalid entry. "See, I told you it's acting up," Daniel exclaimed, feigning frustration. The robber grew impatient, his grip on the gun tightening. "Hurry up. I don't have all night." Daniel took a deep breath, buying himself a few more seconds. "Okay, let me try one more time. I think I might have mistyped it." As Daniel continued to pretend to struggle with the safe's code, he discreetly reached for his phone in his pocket. Keeping his actions hidden from the robber's view, he dialed the emergency number. He held his breath as he heard the faint ringing tone, hoping that help would arrive soon. Minutes felt like hours as Daniel engaged in a tense back and forth with the robber, alternating between fake attempts to open the safe and pleas for more time. The robber's frustration grew with each failed attempt, and Daniel sensed the tension in the air escalating. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the sound of sirens wailing outside. The police had arrived. The robber's eyes widened in alarm, realizing that the situation had taken an unexpected turn. Before he could react, the pharmacy was flooded with police officers. They stormed through the front door, their weapons drawn and ready. The sudden influx of law enforcement overwhelmed the robber. He dropped his bag of stolen drugs and instinctively raised his hands in surrender. Daniel breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that help had come just in time. The police swiftly apprehended the robber, placing him in handcuffs and ensuring the safety of everyone present. As the chaos settled, one of the police officers approached Daniel, commending him for his bravery and quick thinking. They reassured him that he had done the right thing by stalling and alerting the authorities. With the situation under control, Daniel finally allowed himself to release the tension that had built up inside him. He leaned against the counter, his heart pounding, grateful that no one had been harmed during the ordeal. The owner of the pharmacy arrived shortly after, having been alerted by the police. He expressed his gratitude to Daniel for his courage and presence of mind. The community also rallied around Daniel, praising him for his bravery and acknowledging the risks he had taken to protect their well-being. In the aftermath of the incident, the pharmacy implemented additional security measures to prevent such situations from occurring again. Daniel's role in thwarting the robbery earned him recognition and respect within the community. Though the experience had been frightening, Daniel was proud that he had managed to stay calm and take action when it mattered most. He realized that even in the face of danger, ordinary individuals like himself could make a difference and help uphold the safety and security of their communities. In 2017 in New York City, Lisa Jones worked as a cashier at a supermarket called Francis. She had been working there for 6 months, and she loved her job. She was friendly, helpful, and efficient. She also liked her co-workers and customers, who were mostly nice and polite. One evening in late November, Lisa was working the night shift at the supermarket. It was a quiet night. There weren't many customers. Lisa was bored and tired, but she tried to stay awake and cheerful. She soon regretted her decision when she heard a loud knock coming from the front door. She looked up and saw a group of 5 masked men with guns. They smashed the glass door and entered the store, shouting and waving their weapons. "This is a robbery. Everybody get down on the floor," shouted one of them. Lisa felt a rush of fear and panic as she realized what was happening. She dropped the scanner she was holding and raised her hands in surrender. "Please don't touch me. Take whatever you want," she pleaded. The robbers quickly looked around the store and saw that there was no one in it but Lisa. They decided to focus on her and the cash register. One of them, approached the cash register and pointed a gun at Lisa. "Open it and give me all the money," he ordered. Lisa nodded and obeyed. She opened the cash register and pulled out all the bills and coins. She handed them to the robber, who stuffed them into her bag. "Is that all?" he asked. "Yes, that's all. Please leave me alone," said Lisa. The robber looked at the bag and shook his head. Then he looked at his partners and said, "That's not enough. We need more money." The other robbers agreed and began to look around the store for other valuables. They approached the aisles and shelves and grabbed everything they could get their hands on. Cigarettes, alcohol, electronics, jewelry, etc. They threw them into their bags or pockets. Lisa watched helplessly as the robbers robbed her store. She felt angry and insulted, but realized she had no choice but to cooperate. She hoped that they would leave soon and not hurt her or her store again. She also hoped that someone would notice the broken door or hear the noise and call the police. She regretted not pressing the silent alarm button under the counter, but in her panic, she forgot to do so. Luckily for her, someone did notice the robbery. A security guard patrolling the parking lot saw the broken door and heard screaming inside. He quickly pulled out his phone and dialed 911. He reported what he saw and gave the address of the store. He also described the appearance and weapons of the robbers. Police responded quickly and arrived on the scene within minutes. They surrounded the store and ordered the robbers to come out with their hands up. The robbers heard sirens and realized they had been caught. They panicked and tried to run out the back door, but were met by more police officers who blocked their path. The robbers had no choice but to surrender. They threw down their weapons and bags and walked out with their hands up. They were handcuffed and taken into custody. The cops searched them and found the masks, gloves, guns, and other tools they had used for the robbery. Lisa was relieved when she saw the police arrive and arrest the robbers. She thanked them for their quick action and cooperation. She also thanked the security guard who called 911 and saved her from a worse fate. The police officers asked Lisa if she was hurt and needed medical attention. She replied that physically she was fine, but emotionally shaken. She also said she wanted to press charges against the robbers for breaking into her store and stealing money and merchandise. Police took Lisa's statement and collected evidence from the scene. They also gave her back some of the money and merchandise they had retrieved from the robbers' bags. They told her they would contact her later for further investigation and prosecution. Lisa thanked them again and closed her store for the night. She decided to call her boyfriend and tell him what had happened. She also decided to ask her supervisor for a day off or a transfer to another shift. She hoped this would be the last time something like this would happen to her or her store. In the year 2018, in Paris, France, Pierre Dubois was a chef at a fine dining restaurant called Le Gourmet. He had been working there for 3 years and loved his job. He was passionate, creative, and talented. He also liked his co-workers and customers, who were mostly wealthy and sophisticated. One night in late September, Pierre was working the night shift at the restaurant. It was a slow night, with few customers coming in. Pierre was bored and tired, but he tried to stay focused and professional. He soon regretted his decision when he heard a loud noise coming from the back door. He looked up and saw 2 men wearing masks and carrying guns. They had broken the door and entered the kitchen, shouting and waving their weapons. "This is a robbery. Everyone get down on the floor," one of them yelled. Pierre felt a surge of fear and panic as he realized what was happening. He dropped the knife he was holding and raised his hands in surrender. "Please, don't hurt me. Take whatever you want," he pleaded. The robbers quickly scanned the kitchen and saw that there were 4 other employees inside. 2 waiters, a dishwasher, and a sous chef. They decided to focus on Pierre and the safe. One of them went to the safe and pointed his gun at Pierre. "Open it up and give me all the money," he ordered. Pierre nodded and obeyed. He opened the safe and took out all the bills and coins. He handed them over to the robber, who stuffed them into a bag. "Is that all?" he asked. "Yes, that's all. Please just leave us alone," Pierre said. The robber looked at the bag and shook his head. He then looked at his partner and said, "This is not enough. We need more money." The other robber agreed and started to look around the kitchen for more valuables. They went to the cabinets and drawers and grabbed anything they could find. Silverware, wine bottles, spices, etc. They threw them into their bags or pockets. Pierre watched helplessly as the robbers ransacked his kitchen. He felt angry and violated, but he knew that he had no choice but to cooperate. He hoped that they would leave soon and not harm him or his kitchen any further. He also hoped that someone would notice the broken door or hear the commotion and call the police. He wished he had a panic button or a phone to contact security, but he had none of those things. However, his hope turned to horror when he saw that the robbers were not satisfied with their loot. They started to threaten the other employees, who were lying on the floor in fear. "Hey you, get up and give me your wallet," one of them said to a waiter. "Please, don't hurt me. I don't have any money," the waiter said. "Shut up and do as I say," the robber said as he kicked him in the ribs. The waiter cried out in pain and handed over his wallet. The robber took it and threw it into his bag. He then moved on to the next employee, a dishwasher. "What about you? Do you have anything valuable?" he asked. "No, please, leave me alone," the dishwasher said. The robber grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up. He then pointed his gun at his head. "I don't believe you. Tell me where you hide your money, or I'll blow your brains out," he said. The dishwasher was terrified and begged for mercy. He said that he didn't have any money and pleaded for his life. The other employees, witnessing the escalating violence, trembled in fear, their eyes filled with desperation. Pierre's heart raced as he watched his colleagues being threatened. He couldn't bear to see them suffer any longer. In that moment, a surge of courage overtook his fear, and he knew he had to act. Drawing upon his extensive knowledge of kitchen tools and his quick thinking, Pierre devised a plan to distract the robbers and buy enough time for the employees to call the police. Silently, Pierre moved toward the large industrial stove, his eyes scanning the kitchen for the perfect tool to aid his mission. He spotted a nearby rack of gleaming metal pans and realized their potential. He grabbed a handful of pans and clanged them together, creating a deafening noise that reverberated throughout the kitchen. Startled, the robbers turned their attention to Pierre, momentarily forgetting about their victims. Pierre seized the opportunity and continued his improvised performance, banging the pans together with rhythmic fervor. The loud clanging and cacophony disoriented the robbers, momentarily disrupting their menacing aura. Confusion and irritation flickered across the robbers' faces as they struggled to regain control of the situation. This distraction was all Pierre needed. Swiftly, he motioned to the other employees, indicating that they should call the police immediately. With renewed hope, they reached for their hidden phones and dialed emergency services, reporting the ongoing robbery. The robbers, realizing they were losing precious time, swiftly turned their attention back to Pierre, their expressions now twisted with fury. One of them approached Pierre, pointing his gun directly at him. "You think you're clever, huh?" The robber snarled. "I'll make sure you regret this." Pierre braced himself for the worst, but he refused to back down. His eyes flickered with determination as he held the robber's gaze. Suddenly, the shrill sound of sirens wailed in the distance. The robbers' faces contorted with alarm as they heard the approaching police vehicles. Panic consumed them, realizing that their escape was rapidly fading. In that crucial moment, Pierre seized the opportunity to launch his final act of defiance. With a surge of adrenaline, he lunged forward, aiming a swift kick at the robber's legs. Caught off guard, the robber stumbled backward, momentarily losing his grip on the gun. The other employees, emboldened by Pierre's heroic actions, seized the chance to join the fight. They tackled the second robber, overpowering him and wresting the gun from his grasp. Together, they swiftly disarmed and restrained the would-be thieves, holding them captive until the police arrived. Within minutes, law enforcement swarmed the restaurant, apprehending the criminals and securing the scene. The employees, shaken but relieved, huddled together, their gratitude for Pierre's bravery and quick thinking evident in their tearful eyes. News of Pierre's heroic acts spread like wildfire throughout the city. The local media hailed him as a true guardian angel, highlighting his selfless actions in the face of danger. The gourmet became a symbol of resilience, a place where heroes were born, and where the spirit of camaraderie triumphed over adversity. In recognition of his extraordinary bravery, Pierre was honored with numerous accolades, including the prestigious Citizen of the Year award. The restaurant rallied behind him, organizing a celebratory event to express their gratitude and admiration for his unwavering courage. In the year 2018, in London, England, Mark Smith was a bank employee who worked at a branch of the Royal Bank of Scotland. He had been working there for 3 years and liked his job. He was responsible for servicing the ATMs, making sure they had enough cash and were functioning properly. He also liked his co-workers and customers, who were mostly friendly and respectful. One night in late June, Mark was working the night shift at the bank. It was a quiet night, with few customers coming in. Mark was busy checking the ATMs and replenishing them with cash. He enjoyed working alone and listening to music on his headphones. He soon regretted his decision when he heard a loud bang coming from outside the bank. He looked up and saw a group of 4 men wearing masks and carrying bags. They had blown up the glass door and entered the bank, heading towards one of the ATMs. They were holding explosives and tools, ready to break into the ATM and steal the cash. Mark felt a surge of fear and panic as he realized what was happening. He quickly took off his headphones and hid behind a desk. He then reached for his phone and pressed a hidden alarm button that alerted the police and the bank security. He hoped that they would arrive soon and stop the robbers. He also hoped that the robbers wouldn't notice him or harm him. The robbers didn't notice Mark or the alarm. They were focused on their target, the ATM that contained the most cash. They placed some explosives on the ATM and prepared to detonate them. Just as they were about to set off the explosives, they heard the blaring sirens of approaching police cars. Panicking, they realized that their heist was about to be foiled. In a desperate attempt to complete their mission, the robbers hastily grabbed their bags and tried to escape through the shattered entrance. However, to their surprise, they found the door leading outside to be locked. Mark had managed to activate the security system, which automatically sealed off all exits, trapping the criminals inside the bank. Within moments, the police arrived in full force, surrounding the bank and establishing a perimeter. They swiftly took control of the situation, assessing the scene and strategizing the best way to apprehend the robbers without endangering innocent lives. Meanwhile, inside the bank, Mark anxiously awaited rescue. He had taken shelter behind a study desk, peeking cautiously to observe the events unfolding. He was relieved to see the police forming a plan to ensure everyone's safety. Using a combination of negotiation tactics and strategic positioning, the police attempted to communicate with the trapped robbers. They urged them to surrender peacefully and warned them of the dire consequences if they chose to resist. Realizing that their options were limited, the robbers reluctantly surrendered. They dropped their bags of stolen loot and cautiously emerged from their hiding spots, their hands raised in surrender. The police swiftly handcuffed them and escorted them out of the bank, bringing an end to the tense standoff. As the situation de-escalated, bank employees were gradually allowed to leave their secure areas, including Mark. Emerging from his hiding place, he was greeted with gratitude and relief from his fellow colleagues. They commended him for his quick thinking and bravery in activating the alarm and ensuring the safety of everyone inside the bank. The police conducted a thorough investigation, collecting evidence and interviewing witnesses. It was determined that the robbers had meticulously planned the heist, targeting the bank due to its perceived vulnerability during the night shift. However, their plans were thwarted by Mark's swift response and the effective collaboration between the bank's security systems and the police. The incident served as a reminder of the importance of security measures and the vigilance of bank employees like Mark. His heroic actions not only prevented a substantial financial loss, but also protected the well-being of everyone involved. News of the foiled robbery spread throughout the community, garnering attention and praise from Mark and the police officers involved. Mark's colleagues celebrated his courage and nominated him for a local community recognition award, highlighting his exceptional dedication to his job and his selfless act under extreme circumstances. My opinion: I think that no one is immune from such situations, so you need to protect yourself from this. For example, change your job and not go to the night shift, or just learn the skills of self-defense and weapons possession, so that in such situations you can defend yourself and your family. Thanks for watching, be careful, and see you in the next video.